This is the Del Sol B16 VTEC engine. Here's the VTEC solenoid. Here's the spool valve, and I believe that the gasket at the base of the spool valve, which is down in here, needs to be replaced because we have an oil leak which is occurring down here. This is probably where it's coming from. We're just going to replace that. We're just going to get a couple items out of our way so we can get to the bolts on this pretty easily. Number one, right here, you're going to squeeze on this plastic tab, squeeze in this way and just pull up. That will remove this entire assembly from that retaining bracket, so now that's out of our way right here. Next, we're going to disconnect this green connector right here. There's a little tab right here. You can just squeeze on this and pull out to your left and it'll come right off. Then we're going to get all of this out of our way just by removing this one Phillips head screw right here, and that'll give us much better access to all the bolts on the VTEC mechanism. Okay. Now that this is up and out of the way, plenty of room to work, we'll do one more disconnection. We'll disconnect this coupler right here by squeezing on this tab and pulling these two ends apart so that when we pull off the spool valve, it won't be connected to anything else on the vehicle. Now that everything is disconnected and pulled away from the VTEC spool valve, you can see that you have three 10mm bolts you just have to get at. One right here, one up here, and then one down there. Those three bolts we're going to unscrew, and then we'll just be able to pull this whole thing straight out. All three 10mm bolts are removed, and when this comes off, you can see the gasket is sitting inside there. We're going to replace that. And I have my new gasket over here from K-Motor Performance, and when we replace it, we're also going to make sure we just do a nice job of cleaning up the entire surface that's going to mate here, as well as the surface on the head here, to make sure that we don't have any debris or anything that would get stuck in there to cause a leak. Once you've replaced the gasket, just reinstall the three 10mm bolts. Do it just by turning them with your bare hands. Don't use any tools yet. These are only supposed to go to 8.7 foot-pounds of torque, which is not a lot. If you use tools right away, you might snap off one of these bolts, so be super careful. Just hand tighten. Then after you've done all three hand tight, just go for one with a torque wrench first to make sure you know what it feels like to get to just under that 9 foot-pounds of torque, that 8.7. You may not be able to get your torque wrench into the back ones. There's just not a lot of workspace, but at least do it on this front one so you have a good tactile feel for how much torque it is before your torque wrench clicks. And then you can go ahead and get the other two down to that similar torque. Do not over torque these. Worst case, you're going to just cause a leak again by over compressing the gasket, and even worse than that, you snap off a bolt and then there's your whole day gone trying to back that snapped off bolt out of there. So luckily I was able to squeeze my torque wrench into all these little gaps and get it to all three bolts to get proper 8.7 foot-pounds of torque. And now all we need to do is reconnect all of these connectors and brackets, just in reverse of what we did before, and then hopefully we will have no more leak.